Welcome to the Leader Impact Podcast. We are a community of leaders with a network in over 350 cities around the world dedicated to optimizing our personal, professional, and spiritual lives to have impact. This show is where we have a chance to listen and engage with leaders who are living this out. We love talking with leaders, so if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions to make this show even better, please let us know. The best way to stay connected in Canada is through our newsletter at leaderimpact.ca or on social media at LeaderImpact. And if you're listening from outside of Canada, check out our website at leaderimpact.com. I'm your host, Lisa Peters, and our guest today is Comfort Payne, otherwise known as Dr. C. She calls herself a viciously private, imperfect lady of elegance, a woman whose strength was shaped not in comfort, but through the courage, faith, and grace. With over a decade of experience in mental and public health, Dr. C has made it her mission to challenging stigma and breaking barriers surrounding mental well-being in marginalized and vulnerable communities. Guided by her natural gift of empathy and discernment, she creates spaces where honesty replaces silence, where the conversations we often avoid become the ones that heal, inspire, and ignite change. Poised, warm, and unapologetically herself, with a quiet strength and a flair for fashion that speaks as boldly as her purpose. Please welcome Dr. C to the Leader Impact Podcast. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Can I do something really unorthodox?
Yes.
Could I say a short prayer for us? Would that be okay? Is that allowed?
That is allowed, Dr. C.
Okay. Father, I just want to say thank you for this wonderful opportunity to just be present here and to be in the presence of Miss Lisa Peters. I thank you because I feel so humbled to have a space to share my story, and hopefully I will touch some hearts. I ask for you to speak through me, and I ask for this to be such a warm and lovely conversation in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay.
Thanks, Dr. C. Okay, I just love listening to you. I have to ask, can you tell us where's the accent from?
Yes, I'll put on my glasses so I can see you a little better. I forgot to wear my contact lenses, so forgive me. So I'm originally from the United Kingdom.
Okay.
So that's where the accent's from. I'm from the United Kingdom. I'm from Southeast London, to be precise. I'm from a little town called Bellingham.
Bellingham.
Yes, which is not too far from Kent.
Okay.
Yes.
Have to look that up on a map. And your name, Comfort Payne. Like, I'm not going anywhere until I know Comfort Payne.
Yeah. I think, I won't say my parents were humorous. They weren't. It meant something special to them, the name Comfort. So Payne's my family name. And Comfort was a name that later on in life, it seemed to be of great importance to them. There was some tragedy in the family, and my name seemed to be a breath of fresh air. Once that happened, I think I filled that void with regards to bringing comfort to the family. So that's where the name comes from.
Thank you for sharing that. That was wonderful. Yeah. Well, I am looking forward to talking with you today. I know a little bit more about you, more than what I've said, and I have loved reading about you, but I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about your professional journey and how you got from where you are to where you are today, what you're doing, but more importantly, that pivotal moment that really got you along the journey. Do you have one that you could share?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I'm originally from the United Kingdom, and my journey, I'll often say, isn't a straight line. It's a tapestry of woven, unexpected detours, some unfortunate circumstances, and I would say a dash of divine intervention. So that's how I would sum up my journey. So I would start off by telling you a bit about my educational background. So I started education at the age of 2. So I say that because I just want you to understand just the background of education to me as an individual. So I started at the age of 2. My parents, I was quite blessed, sent me to private school for most of my education and life from preschool, just before post-secondary, and I also had the opportunity to go to boarding school. I went to boarding school in 2 different continents, and I think that experience was very important to me because it allowed me to build resilience, independent, and also a understanding of the fact that there are different cultures out there. We're very different, but we also have linings of similarity. So I think I was very fortunate to be able to do that, to have been in boarding school. And on the other hand, it did seem a bit odd. I was about 9 and 10 when I went to boarding school for the first time. And so it was unusual for me within the community that I was raised, for a child to have gone to boarding school at such a young age. But I'm sure that my parents had, my best interests at heart, and I'm sure they would have a reason if you ask them why they done that. But raising myself and my siblings, one of the things that my parents would always instill onto us is the fact that we were to see ourselves as heads and not the tails, and to see ourselves as leaders and not followers. And most importantly, for us to be mindful when we interacted with people. They would mention to us that you never know who people are. So be mindful and respectful of who people are. And being the eldest as well, one of the other things was that I should carry myself in a way that I paid attention to my younger ones, my cousins, and so emulating whatever it is that I did. So that kind of helped to shape the way I carried myself. And it was a bit of a burden at times, because in spaces where I may have wanted to contradict something or maybe behave slightly out of the box, I was always mindful, because I remembered what my parents would tell me about the fact that I had people behind me that were paying attention to what I did and how I behaved. And so that's something that I felt molded my fascination with human beings and human behavior. And so, like I stated before, I went to boarding school on 2 different continents. And with that traveling bug, at the age of 16, I got my passport, and I registered myself with a project called Camp America. And I became a camp counselor at the age of 16. And my parents, they were very okay with it, because they felt I was quite mature enough to do so. But I wasn't scared. I was brave, and I was very fascinated with North America and everything to do with North America. And doing that made me value, why do people do the things that they do, and why do we behave the way that we behave. I think that was where the bug of that keenness within me developed. So fast forward a little bit, I then found myself, I stumbled into a profession in healthcare. So I became a registered psychiatric nurse in the UK, and I then became a nurse manager for a very pivotal private health hospital at the time. However, nursing was not my dream. I had no interest in nursing whatsoever. I always envisioned myself being an advocate or lawyer or someone in entertainment. That was my dream. So nursing I fell into, as I state. But nursing, I think, was the school that taught me to hone more into my empathy and hone more into compassion, hone more into being a non-judgmental person. And it really did stand as a basis for what I then decided to pursue later on in life. And that led me to an opportunity I had probably half a decade ago to go to North America and to expand my career. And at the time, I was going through quite a traumatic season, so it was almost an escapism for me as well. And so this wonderful experience got presented to me. And that, I would say, was the the pivotal change within my both my career and my personal life in both positives and negative ways. I think also with regards to that transition within about 30, 36 to 72 hours of me arriving, everything just fell apart. It was devastating. And this was something that I had planned for over 2 years. And within 72 hours, everything fell apart. And I felt completely stripped of my identity. I felt lost and very alone because I'd left my family, I'd left a comfortable life, I'd left a profession that I was doing very well in. And um, at the time when people started encouraging, my family started encouraging me to perhaps come back to the UK, COVID hit. And so that decision was taken away from me. And I look back at that and I sense that the brokenness and the solitude all seemed to be God's plan in what he was aiming to do in my life. And I keep remembering a verse that came from the Bible, which is Jeremiah 29:11, which stated that, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, and plans to prosper you and plans to not harm you." But at the time, I didn't feel that way. I felt that God was against me.
Yeah. I can understand that. And I think people, when we're in it, we're in the pain, we are struggling to understand why are we here. And at what point when you were in it, at what, did you start seeing the light and go, okay, because I'm sure you were questioning your faith
I,
at that point.
I did. I questioned my faith a lot. And the reason being because it just didn't make sense how everything had just fallen apart. And I was left in a situation whereby I just, it was just, it's one of those situations when you just can't explain. There was no logical reason behind why the plans that had been made weren't going the way they were supposed to. And I think what was scary was that even though I was keen to travel, even though I could speak English, and I felt that all the things that I needed. So if I go back a little bit, in the hope of moving to a different country, I was very resistant of having to walk the immigrant path. And I'm saying that because I had known of friends, of family who have immigrated to a different country and have gone through a struggle because of that. So I'd always said to myself, if I'm ever going to move somewhere, I'll ensure that I go as a professional, and I'll go with all my ducks in line, so to say. And so with all those plans, that wasn't the case. Although I had all my ducks in line, the rug was just pulled out beneath me. And it was hard because I had gone with trust. I had gone and I had faced betrayal, and I had gone and I had faced find myself in a situation where I was both financially and professionally crippled because I wasn't able to work within my profession at the time. And part of the stipulation of me moving to North America was to do a master's. And so my sponsor had pulled out of sponsoring me, and I'd sold everything. I'd sold everything in the UK, and I was waiting for my personal belongings to come through cargo. And so I just felt completely alone, and I questioned and I cried and I questioned, and I asked God why, and it just did not make sense. It was very traumatic for me, that experience
Yeah.
moving.
But you ultimately did get your master's of, 'cause I wrote it down, like you,
I got a master's of
yes.
nursing. That's what I got. Yes.
And then you got your doctor of public health. Like you, the story ends well, right?
The story does end well. However, the
Yeah.
processes to that story was not a smooth pathway.
Yeah. I think
It wasn't a
sometimes,
smooth pathway.
yeah, people look at you and they look at your fabulousness look and they go, she has it all together, you know? And so I thank you for just sharing that it's not always easy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you can share through all this or now and where you're working, what your best principle of success is, and if you have a story that illustrates that.
Absolutely. So I could say my best principle of success would be don't judge a book by its cover. I could say when God has a plan for you, what is yours is yours. I have so many that I could provide for you. But I think the one that has been my anchor through this season is something that I refer to as grace and grit. So, two contrasting things. So, grace to trust God when things don't make sense, and grit to keep moving even when you can't see the finishing line. So, those are my two principles, and I'll expand a little for you. So, first, regarding the grit, to keep moving, and that would reflect the series of events that took place following when my sponsor pulled pulled the plug, so to say, and after I arrived over less than 3 days, and I had every reason to quit. And I remember calling my mother devastated, and I stated to her, I said, what we're going to do? I can't afford a master's, and I can't even work. I wasn't even able to work within my profession at the time. And one of the stipulations of a student visa is you can work a maximum of 20 hours. So and I had loved ones dependent on me. So just imagine that scenario where I have a qualification, I have a ticket, so to say, to open doorways of employment for me, but I can't utilize them. So my mother at the time was about to retire, and she said, don't worry, Comfort, you will complete this master's. And I said, how's that going to happen? And some few years back, for her birthday, we bought her a luxury car for her birthday. She had a great milestone that she had celebrated, and she sold the car. My mum sold her car to pay for my master's, and I can't tell you how much of a lifeline that was for me at the time. And within months following that, um, God just started showing me different ways to remind me that He loved me and He was in this journey with me. So from the onset, there were so many divine encounters. If I was to reel them off, you will tell me that I'm telling fibs and this is a Hollywood story that I'm telling you. But I had things from people would just say to me, Comfort, how much is your rent? And I would be like, okay. And I'll tell them, and they'll say, well, God asked me to pay for your rent. And they would pay my entire rent for the month. And it would be something like someone would say to me, they were on the way to do groceries, and my name came into their mind, and they would bring me bags of groceries. So I wasn't lacking with regards to that. And it was extremely difficult for me, though, to receive help. And the reason being was two things. One, in the UK, before I left, my family and I had this project called Project H25, which stands for Homeless at Christmas. And we weren't sponsored. We just set money aside during the year. And the week of Christmas, we'd go to Marks and Spencer's and buy food packages and buy sleeping bags and different kind of useful things, and we'd wrap them up, wrap the sleeping bags into presents so they looked like presents. And then Christmas Day, my sister and I would go round on Christmas morning and look for homeless people to give that to. And the sense of joy that that brings you, because they felt like they were opening a present. And so now I was on the other side, and I'm not comparing myself to someone that's homeless, but on the other side of being in need. And I felt that I wasn't deserving of it, because I felt I was educated, I could work, I wasn't addicted to any substances, I didn't have a mental health issue. So I didn't feel that the provision that was given to me was something that I should have. I felt there were people less fortunate than me that deserved the provision. So it was very challenging for me at the time to receive help. But saying that, the interesting thing with that was, in the same breath that all those wonderful things was taking place and God was comforting me, because I'm a very loyal person, I'm loyal to a fault. And I say that in the sense that if someone does something kind to me, I keep it to heart. The gratitude that I would show that person is immense. And I feel that God wanted me to know that human beings were flawed, that no one was perfect, and that people that He put in my life were vessels, and I should see them as only but that, vessels. And I say that because in the same breath that all the wonderful things was happening, a season shortly after, everything just crumbled. So people that I had grown close to and became vulnerable to and trusted, one by one, they started to disappear. People that had pledged to walk with me through this journey, one by one, they started to fall along the wayside. And I became estranged from quite a few family members in the UK. And I felt extremely isolated at the time. And I think it was God trying to teach me that He was taking me into a season that He wanted me to rely solely on Him. He didn't want anyone to be able to say, oh, it's because of me that Comfort is where she's at, or this or that. I think God wanted me to solely rely on Him and only Him. And that was hard for me, because the same year all that was happening, I had an accident, two accidents, one at the beginning of the year, one at the end of the year. And so they were tragic accidents. And so I felt my external life was crumbling. And then my internal life began to crumble. I was diagnosed with some unfortunate health situations, a couple of autoimmune conditions. So I said, God, what's going on? My support system has gone and my body is betraying me. And it was such a dark time for me. But the only thing that I do remember is that He would remind me of a Bible verse that states that I know the plans that I have for you. That just kept on being a ringing thing. Trust in me with all your heart and lean on to not onto your own understanding. Those Bible verses just kept on becoming more and more audible in my ear. And so I had to learn to just surrender in the solitude that He was taking me. Mm-hmm. And so that's the grit. And so I'll talk quickly about the grace. With regards to the grace, once I'd completed my master's, as you mentioned, it would have probably been sensible for me to move back to the UK then, knowing what I was going through. And I called my mother, and I think I felt quite confident in the achievement. And I said to her, oh, I've done this. And that was a breeze. And this is half-hearted humor, by the way. And we had this conversation, and I said, oh, I feel like I can do anything right now. And perhaps I should go ahead and go and do doctoral studies or a PhD. It was a joke. I wasn't intending for her to take me serious. And my mum said, well, if you want to, then why not? And I said to her, I don't think you understand how expensive this is. And we've just gone through this whole season. And she said, well, I believe that if that's what you want to do, God will allow there to be a way for this to happen. And she said, I'll support you in every way that I can. And what should have been 5 years for me to complete, this spring gone, I completed it shy of 3.5 years. And I cannot tell you how. I'm not going to brag and say I'm the most smartest person in the world. No, not at all. But what I can tell you is, looking back at what it is, I know that it was about honoring my mother's faith in me and God's faithfulness through me to her. And God reminded me that my thoughts are not his thoughts, and his ways and my ways are not his ways. And that was something that allowed me to understand what grace and grit really meant.
Wow. I feel there's, you talk about going to school at grade 2, or you started your education, not that you said school.
Yes.
You talked about, you got into nursing and you thought you wanted to be the lawyer, the advocate. And there was sort of like a disconnect there.
Yeah.
What I know of you now, you are an advocate in mental health, in
Yes.
public health, where we talk. And so I want to ask you about like fears and failures, because you talk about the failures. There has been some setbacks,
Yeah.
but we know that sometimes that's our, like, those failures and mistakes can be our greatest successes. So, do you have, I mean, we learn more from those failures and mistakes than our own successes. And Comfort, I think you've done a lot of learning. I don't know if you have any more to share, just a failure or mistake that you learned so much. But
Yeah.
listening to you, I feel like I've learned a lot.
Yeah. I would say my greatest mistake was dimming my light to make others feel comfortable. I think that was my greatest mistake. And that came about through vulnerability of the season that I was in at the time. So I felt a lot of, I'd say, embarrassment because of where I'd found myself, in the position that I'd found myself. And so because of that, for a very long time, um, I felt like I wanted to fade into the wall. I didn't necessarily want to fit in, but I wanted to just disappear, but still be accepted. And that if I blended quietly, maybe people won't notice me. And that was I don't know what I was thinking, to be honest. And and so there are a series of events that I'll walk us through with regards to that. So in the UK, I won't say that I wasn't aware of racism. As a woman of color, or a black woman, whichever politically correct way you want to pitch it to be, I was fully aware of it. But the thing is, I don't think it was glaring to me, in the sense that the UK is very multicultural, and I've never felt that I couldn't uh, fill a space or be part of a space that I was in. I didn't feel awkward at all in any way. But in the climate that I found myself, in the environments that I was in, I felt very different. It was something that was made known to me, for me to be aware of, that I was different. My accent, the way I dressed, my confidence, my achievement. There were sometimes even ridiculed, should I say, the fact that I had all these achievements, but I wasn't working within a role that mirrored the achievements. I was working in roles that I was probably way overqualified for. And so I remember a question that someone asked me. They asked me, where was I from? And I opened my mouth, and they were shocked, because they were probably expecting an accent from somewhere else than a British accent. And then I said, I'm from the UK. And they said, no, where are you from? Where are you from? And I was confused. I didn't really understand what they meant by that question. And they were referring to my ancestral origins, because I'm black. And I found it quite ignorant at the time, because I thought you wouldn't ask a white Canadian or white South African person, where are you from, which would obviously mean somewhere in Europe, their ancestral origin. And I've since spoken to other ethnic minorities, and they've told me that they've found similar questions being asked of them. And so then I started to, when I get asked that question, I would ask the same question and I'd say, and where are you from? And if I get told wherever, I was like, no, where are you from? Where are you from? And it would always come back with a sense of embarrassment. They would
Yeah.
blush, and it would help them to think about what they've just asked. And that was something that I started to do when I realized that I couldn't continue to try and fade into the background. And I was mistaken for thinking that I could, in a sense like that. And then I think another example that I would give, which kind of like navigated me into feeling insecure about who I was when I realized I was being misunderstood a lot. And all I wanted to do was to belong. And what was dubbed by someone as a community, they said to me, Comfort, you're looking for your community. And to me, my community was the church. That was my community. And it was interesting that even within then, other people felt that my community that I would identify with had to do with my race or my ancestral origin. So I almost felt like I was being pushed towards that rather than being accepted for the community that I was trying to integrate myself in. And I think that succumbed to a lot of stereotypes and preconceptions. I had piercings. I was dressed differently in the same way that I love listening to Wyclef and Mary J. Blige, is the same way that I love listening to Christian rock and Christian rappers like Dax and songs like Carrie Underwood. So I feel like I'm a mix of so many different things. And I just feel that people didn't know where to put me. And they misunderstood me because they couldn't quite understand where to put comfort. What box should we put comfort in? And I can recollect that I started to then recognize the hostility that I would get sometimes because of that. And even within what was deemed to be my community, my very first recollection of racism, so to say, was from someone that looked exactly like me. And that was hard for me to understand. And a doctor that I knew at the time that had come from the UK referred to it as implicit racism. And it was a word that I'd never understood before. But I started to see it to be when people are unable to make sense of something new to them, it's almost like a fight or flight. So they'll either embrace it or they will react to it with hostility. And I found that most people reacted with hostility towards not knowing where to put my varied boxes, so to say. And with regards to that astonished me, and I began to shrink and withdraw even more, doubting who I was. I was just very broken. I was very broken at the time. But then I realized that playing small, it didn't protect me. It only erased who I was, and that wasn't what God wanted for me. And He reminded me so often that His plans for me were good and not for evil. And I remember verses like, "Come unto me, all who are burdened and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest." And I felt that He wanted to give me rest with all the conflicts that I was feeling at the time. And I'll give you two stories of how that started to shift. One poignant story was during the early season, I was befriended by this couple, this senior couple, and they were very nice and they invited me to lunch. And the wife, she was very insecure about how she looked. And I remember on my way there, not too far from their house, one of my church sisters was driving me there, and I asked her to park up, and I started to take off my earrings. I took off my high heels, and I started to put on some joggers because I was wearing a modest summer dress, but I knew it made me look more petite than usual. And this lady, I was aware, was insecure because she was overweight, and I my church sister was looking at me. She was like, "Comfort, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I don't want her to feel bad, you know." And she said, "But that's not your responsibility." And I said, "Yeah, it's not." And I knew it wasn't something that I should do, because I was changing who I was to try and make someone else feel more comfortable. And I think I was doing a disservice to God by doing that. And following that, recently, that realization taught me self acceptance. And that self acceptance isn't arrogance, that it's just about gratitude. It's gratitude on how God has made you and the courage to live in your truth, even when it's uncomfortable. And that follows through to a close a close colleague of mine made me aware of a workplace bully that I had, which I hadn't noticed or thought of it to be bullying. So this individual would always make comments that, "Comfort, you always dress so fancy. Don't you own a pair of jeans? And don't you wear joggers?" And it's something that you could, think of it to be harmless banter. But then I realized that no, that she was targeting me for this. And so I remembered what I did about changing how I appear to make someone feel comfortable. So what I did was on my birthday, usually on my birthdays, I try and schedule it to have it off so I can spend some time with God. It's a sacred time for me. And on my birthday, I ordered a dainty tiara from Amazon, and I wore it to work with the dress, almost to say, "Is this fancy enough for you?" And I think she was shocked because of the
Love
boldness of
it.
doing that. But that begun my turning point, and it truly started me, accepting my voice, accepting my presence, accepting that I could walk into a room with grace and strength and still be humble,
Yeah.
and that my light didn't have to be dimmed for someone else. So learning that mistake, coming out of it in that sense, has strengthened me to be who I am, striving to become more and more each day.
Yeah. Oh, I love that example because I think so many people dim themselves because
Yeah.
other people don't like their shine.
Yes.
And I think like I'm a 6 foot woman, and
Yes.
um, I wear heels, comfort, and I
Good.
wear big heels,
I
and
love it.
but I get that that kind of comments like that it's not it's like a bullying comment. It's like,
Yes.
look, I'm wearing them because they look really nice. They make dresses look
Absolutely.
nice, and
Yes,
but
absolutely.
but I'm 6'3" with them. But you know what? I'm gonna just listening to you. I'm gonna work at shining more. Just
Yes.
yeah, like
I think you should. And I
yeah,
I don't
I
think
love
it's
it.
about being proud and being
No,
prideful. It's not. I think in changing who you are, I think it does God a disservice because He's made you wonderful in the way you are. He's made you perfect. And you are a reflection of God. And I think in trying to tone ourselves down and behave in ways that it doesn't dignify who God is in us. And so I think we need to be as truthful to ourselves as much as we can in the spaces that we can.
yeah. Oh, I love it. I'm going to skip right to our last question. You have talked. You've given so many great stories. I'm loving it, and just know that you are a very busy woman, but want to know what brings you the greatest joy.
Ooh, what brings me the greatest joy? I would say the love of family. I'll definitely say the love of family. There'll always be ups and downs with family. And that kind of stands through distance and disappointments and time. It does, and that's unmeasurable. Apart from my immediate family, who have grounded me and undoubtedly have been my greatest cheerleader through my journey, I'm very private and I'm viciously protective of them because they're sacred to me. My mother, my sister, and my cousins. I thank them so much. They mean the world to me. I've also adopted some family here. Nana Gail, as I call her, Uncle Glenn, and Dr. Andy, and those few angels of God that God has sent around my way. I've stubbornly decided not to let go of them. And seeing transformation in others also brings me immense joy, whether it's a patient recovering, a colleague rediscovering their voice, or simply remembering their worth. And something that I hold close dearly to me, Lisa, is that God has given me. I don't know whether it's a skill. I just think He's blessed me in being able to provide a safe space for others. I can't quite explain what it is, but I even have strangers who will walk up to me and pour out their life. They'll pour out their traumas, pour out their concerns. And for them to be able to trust me with those vulnerable parts of their life, I'm so humbled by it. And it's what I call my quiet ministry. And I think mine is just to be able to listen in that way. And on a personal level at the moment, what brings me joy is I found being able to spend some quiet time with God in the morning. I'm not quite there with the 4 a.m. wake and reading the Bible for hours on end at the moment. Mine is more playing songs and dancing around and screaming and shouting and praising His name. And that has brought me such tremendous joy. And so that's a kind of joy that doesn't depend on circumstances, but on the presence, on knowing that even in the silent moment, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you, listening to you, and God putting people coming to you, and do you think something is changing for you? Are you just excited to see an opportunities? I feel like there's things changing for you. Do you?
I think
Uh,
I agree with you. I agree with you, and it frightens me.
oh yeah,
I shared with you before I came on the podcast, and so I must admit that Lisa's been trying to get me on the podcast for a while, and I don't know whether it's because of the season of me shying away and hiding myself that's made me feel very vulnerable in that way. But each time I think about the space that I'm occupying at the moment, it excites me because I know that I will be that voice for those people that don't have that voice. But it frightens me as well because I know I'm imperfect and I just don't know where God's taking me. I know it's going to be a whirlwind. And so it does frighten me at times as well. But I am excited. I can feel that there's a shift and I feel that something is brewing and I know it's going to be something really great. But it's frightening. It
yeah.
is frightening. Yeah.
I can agree with the frightening and exciting all at the same time, because you don't know where you're going, but it's like I'm going to put my trust and I'm going to show up every day. I'm going to continue to work hard, and I
That's
don't,
right.
and thank God for every moment. And where are we going? Like,
It
yeah,
is all that, Lisa.
yeah,
And my journey, like I said, I feel I at the moment I feel that if my journey can make just one person feel seen or encouraged, then it's been worthwhile. When I leave this world in many, many, many years to come, I hope that people just don't remember me for what I've achieved, but how I've made them feel, you know, made them feel valued, made them feel understood and loved.
yeah.
Um,
Oh,
that's what I really want.
oh, Comfort, it has been an awesome 45 minutes with you. I have just sat there and my cheeks hurt from smiling and my heart is full. I want to just
Thank
thank you for
you.
just joining us. And I'm glad you finally said yes. I'm like, Comfort, it's just going to be fun.
You did say so.
And you did excellent. If people want to connect with you, find you, how can they do that? What is the best way?
They can find me on LinkedIn at the moment, just Dr. C,
Dr.
C. Or they can find me on the handle on X or Instagram at Dr. C _ OTWDRC. OTWDRC. And that's just a snippet of things to come. So it may not make sense what that handle means just now, but it will make sense in times to come.
That's awesome. Thank you, Dr. C, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. I really appreciated this time that we've had together.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, listeners, I want to thank you for engaging with us. If you're part of Leader Impact, you can always discuss or share this podcast with your group. And if you are not yet part of Leader Impact and would like to find out more and grow your leadership, find our podcast page on our website at leaderimpact.ca. You can also check out groups available in Canada at leaderimpact.ca, or if you're listening from anywhere else in the world, check out leaderimpact.com or get in touch with us by email, info@leaderimpact.ca, and we will connect you. And if you like this podcast, please leave us a comment, give us a rating or review. This will help other global leaders find our podcast. Thank you for engaging with us, and remember, impact starts with you.